Okay, so this is all my trauma. First, there was the fact that my parents were way too young to have me, and they weren't the best. I loved them dearly, but my dad wanted to put his penis in me, and my mom, I love her, but I don't I don't know how to explain without insulting my family in some way. They violently go against me whenever I remember things, and they say that I'm remembering it wrong or that never happened and that's not the person that I know. It's the person that I know, though. Do you not get that? Like, I know I'm right. I know my own mind. I know that one time when my dad was rubbing his dick on me underneath the fucking blanket, I ripped it off and showed the other adult human who was in the room. And I remember that the underwear I was wearing at the time was either Mighty Mouse, Mickey Mouse, or Minnie Mouse. I remember it was some kind of mouse. Okay? And I remember it felt really weird. And I wanted to see what was going on underneath the blanket. But I don't have the specific memory that was definitely my dad. I do remember not wanting to get under the blanket when the person first invited me, but still going because I loved that human. I do remember a specific time that my dad did molest me. It was Easter Sunday or Easter weekend, something to do with Easter. I had been wearing a cute little dress, and when I went to go take my nap, I awoke to a white button-down t-shirt being thrown over the top half of my body and looking out and seeing my dad's arm. And then him getting on top of me and humping on me. I do remember that. And I know that this is a true memory because my sister also saw what was going on. I remember becoming very uncomfortable, not knowing what to do, and just shifting, and the person jumping up and running into the hallway. I remember watching him hop up and down as he pulled his pants back up. I remember sitting up and crying. Violently crying. And then I remember my sister and I going out to the living room, seeing this person sitting in a lazy boy or just a recliner chair, I don't care, and confronting them and them saying it must have been the boogeyman. Do you have any idea how viscerally scared I was of the boogeyman as a child? And when it clicked over in my head that the boogeyman wasn't real and it was just my dad, and that his blaming it on the boogeyman thing wasn't going to work anymore, you want to know how he reiterated my fear of the boogeyman? By hiring one of the neighbor kids to hide in my closet so that when I did my nightly check of my room, I opened the closet to reassure my sister that there was no boogeyman in there, and there was a fucking scary monster in the closet. What the actual fuck? I'm pretty sure I slept in my parents' bed for 2 weeks after that. And every night I sang to myself, boogeyman, boogeyman, go away. Mommy and daddy and sissy are here to stay. And I'm pretty sure that happened after my dad raped my mom. I don't know. The timeline is all fucked up. because the partitions in my brain don't allow for time continuity anymore. Um, I also remember loving my family so deeply that I also remember that my mom did leave my dad and that we went to stay other places and my dad kept breaking in. We could not get away from him. And I don't remember if my mom caved and took him back or not. I don't remember any of that. I just remember that things were not happy and healthy in my home. Because I remember my baby sister crying loudly and for long enough that it woke my 2.5-year-old ass up to go into where she was and change her diaper for her because nobody else in the house was fucking doing it. A 2-year-old should not have to change a diaper. I don't know what was going on with my parents. They were either drunk or high or just not there. But whoever was supposed to be taking care of her wasn't, so I did. And then from that point on, it was ingrained in me that that was my job. My job was making sure that she had a clean diaper on and that she got fed on time. And I took on that responsibility. And I know that it's wasn't really expected of me and that the adults in my life from that time will claim that no, we did everything. We did. No, you fucking didn't. I was there. I was there. Okay? I was there getting picked up by my pigtails and thrown into a brick wall. I was there to get beaten by a belt repeatedly to the point that I was black and blue. I was there to get hit with a wooden stick to the point that when CPS did take me away, there were splinters in my ass. I was there, okay? You can't act like everything was fine because it wasn't. It wasn't fine. And you don't get to make me feel like I'm crazy because I remember. I hate this so much. I can't say these things to my family because then they get mad at me. They get mad at me for knowing my own story. And that makes me feel small and unloved. But they love my sister. They love her because she doesn't remember fucking shit because everything was so goddamn bad she blocked it out. She can't remember most of our childhood because it was that fucking bad. I remember that when CPS took us away, I cried so fucking hard because I wanted my mom. I just wanted my dad to go away. But I remember thinking as the CPS lady drove us to her office, oh, thank God. It's finally over. She can get away from him now. Do you understand that I was 6? And it was my plan. It was my plan to go into foster care, to have someone else interfere long enough that my mom could divorce my dad and then we could come back. That was my plan. And it didn't work because I never got to go home. And I got my sister molested by somebody else. Because our first foster dad was a trusted long-term foster care parent, when we came forward with what was going on, when I finally fucking snapped and those officers told me that they were willing to die if I told them what I needed to say, they found that my foster sister, my sister, and myself were cases 9, 10, and 11. 9, 10, and 11. They confirmed 11 total victims by this fucking prick. And you can't tell me that the wife didn't know, because guess what? We fucking told her, and she said, if you don't like it here, run away. Where the fuck is a 7-year-old supposed to run away to? Especially one that you don't fucking feed. When you always find a reason to ground me and take away dinner or breakfast or lunch or snack time. To the point that even if you feed me breakfast in the morning, I'm also going to eat breakfast at the fucking daycare center and at school, because I don't know when the next time I'm going to get food is. I'm going to hoard cheese and small fruits and candies in my fucking dresser so that I don't wake up in the middle of the night with hunger pains. And I'm going to constantly just try to tell the truth as much as I fucking can, because every time I ever said anything about my dad, he told me I was lying and that it was his mom that he hurt, not me. Do you have any idea how fucking difficult it is to always tell the truth? To internalize that I am not a liar. You can't call me a liar because I always tell the truth. Who the fuck has to live like that? I can't just be normal. And then you get placed in an emergency fucking foster placement after they remove you. Oh God, that day we got removed from the Comptons. The cops came to talk to us in the morning. And you know what their fucking plan was? Act like everything was normal. And at the end of the day, our case manager would come and pick us up. That was their plan. Except she didn't show up right away. The van that we normally got in to go to the daycare center at the end of the school day showed up and left, and I was standing there holding my sister's hand for 15 fucking minutes. And I remember she turned to me and she asked me, what are we gonna do if they don't come? And all I said was, we're gonna run. Because I didn't know what else to tell her. By the time the case manager actually arrived, I'd given up hope that we were actually going to be safe. For fuck's sakes. Everywhere I went, I got hit at that point. I was just expected. I expected that was... Oh, God. Okay. 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 So after that, we were taken to an emergency adoptive placement, and I remember being happy there because nobody was hitting on me, and for the most part, the adults in the house actually left us alone to our own devices. I got to walk to the park by myself. I got to do everything on my own. Their garage was converted and there was a fireplace in there. and a TV and a pool table. And we weren't supposed to touch the pool table, but we would go in there to watch TV and play around. And we weren't supposed to touch the fireplace or the pool table. And one time, my sister walked along the stones of the fireplace, and one of them came loose, and I just kind of pushed it back in there. And eventually, they found the loose stone. And in order to find out who had done it, because we wouldn't tell on each other, they locked us in a room, turned off the AC. The only thing in the room was a bed that was stripped down to nothing but the plastic sheeting. We were in white wife beaters and our underwear for at least 3 hours. Time moves differently when you're a kid. 3 hours is a fucking eternity, especially when you're sweating balls. And I still wasn't gonna crack. So eventually my sister was cracking and said she just wanted it to be over. And I told her that if she wanted it to be over, she was going to have to tell them that she did it herself. They overheard that and assumed that me telling her that was me making her take the blame. So I got grounded and didn't get my gifts for different holidays for like 3 holidays after that. Like, I don't know what to say about this. As an adult, looking back, I know that it was neglect and torture. As a child, I was just glad I wasn't getting hit anymore. And that nobody was telling me what to do every second of the day. Like, I mean, when I first went into foster care and I was with the Comptons, they put me in therapy. And I'm wondering how all of the adults on my case missed every red flag just because he'd been a foster parent for so long. They introduced me to anybody new, and I would tell them, I'm very sorry, but I can't talk to you because I think you're very nice. How the fuck is that not a red flag? Or how the fuck is them pulling me out of therapy not a red flag in the foster care system? I don't know. Then we met the people that eventually adopted my sister. And they assured me again and again that if I didn't want to get adopted, I could still stay with them as a foster child. And because that didn't buy my love and I was still loyal to my mom and really pissed off that they'd cut off visitation, which she missed half of the scheduled visits for, by the way, no matter what she fucking says. Because I remember the phone calls. I remember calling you and asking you where the fuck you were, and you telling me, oh, I'm sorry, I missed the bus, or I got called into work, or blah, 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 and all kinds of excuses and bullshit. I remember, okay? I was there. You don't get to rewrite history because you don't like what you did. Okay, where was I? So, the adoptive placement. They started to leave me in other foster things when they went to go do things over the weekend with my sister or they would leave both of us behind and just go with them and our brother. And then the worst day of my life happened. They took us to our counselor's office. My case manager was there, the counselor was there. And they told me that they would be keeping Jen. They told me that they would be keeping my sister and getting rid of me. That's not what they said, but that's what they said. At the time, there was a commercial for tires. And I just remember watching my sister's tears fall as my own tears fell, and thinking that the rain, the massive torrential storm that tire commercial showed, did not equal the amount of water that was leaving our bodies. Gallons and gallons of it. And that fucking broke me. It broke me. Because I only had like a week left with her. And then when I got settled into my group home, they said that I couldn't come for Christmas because it was too soon. And that just made me feel very unwelcome in their home and my sister's life. So I barely got to see her growing up after that. And in the group home, it was constantly changing people. The girls who live there, the people that work there. There were some people that were long-term from the office, and there were some people that were long-term that stayed with the group home for years. But the fact was that I was the only constant in my own life. Myself and my name. No matter if somebody was threatening to put me in a mental health institution because I didn't want to take meds for ADHD before puberty because I didn't want my brain to become chemically dependent on medications. And them using the fear that I had developed because when my grandpa had schizophrenia and went to a mental health place, I never got to see him again. Because I thought that if you went in, you never got out. So I did everything to avoid that. When I was 15, my meds were going really well and I was happy, and I decided I wanted a family because I deserved some kind of normalcy. And at the time, there was this newly launched website for adoptions across the country. And there were 12 families that were interested in me. One in particular was constantly sending me photos of their home life and their family and everything like that. And the dad was the pastor of the church. And I was a devout Jesus freak. And they seemed like they had glowing recommendations from everyone in their lives. So we did the visitations, and I felt something a little weird about the dad, and I tested the waters, and he seemed to be really in love with his wife, and I didn't think I'd have anything to worry about. And I thought to myself that if anything happened, it meant it was just me. That the problem with the men in my life was that it was just me. That I did something, that I was giving off some kind of pheromone that made men act that way towards me. So after I'd lived there for 3 months, and he told me that he was having nightmares about getting arrested because of the things he wanted to do to me, I blamed myself. I blamed myself. And I still did things with him because that was the only way I knew how to actually express affection for a father figure. And I remember being of dual minds about the whole situation the entire time. I remember thinking, this is my fault, and also, you're a grown-ass man, I'm 16, you fucking freak. And you saying that my previous abusers were sick because I was only 7 or 4 doesn't mean you're not a sicko too. But at the same time, I still want a family. I want to try to make this work because I don't know what else to do at this point. This is my last chance to have a family and any semblance of a childhood. I lived there for 11 months before they gave up on me and sent me home to Arizona. I lived at a temporary group home for about 3 weeks, where I proceeded to very aggressively pursue some poor boy. Like, I just started making out with him for no fucking reason. I'm sorry, hun. Like, I just pursued him relentlessly. And he was into it and not into it because he didn't understand why I was so aggressive about everything. But I think I was trying to take my body back. And then eventually I got back into the group home that I'd grown up in. I moved back into that house. And I needed to talk about what had happened when I was in Wisconsin, but I didn't actually want anything to happen because I blamed myself. So I gave a hypothetical to my counselor and ended up having to speak with a detective about it. But I didn't pursue charges. I didn't go after him because, hey, when I was 9, I was told that I wasn't allowed to take the stand because I couldn't handle it by a fucking district attorney or assistant district attorney. That woman should have let me take the stand. Compton walked away. He walked away. 11 victims. 11 confirmed fucking victims. And he walked the fuck away. And Tanetta made threats against me in a court of law because they lost their house paying for his defense. So I decided not to go to college because I hated school. I hated people and I didn't want to be around them. I was working at a Burger King, and one of my managers asked me all of the time if I was pregnant. And I told her, you have to have sex in order to get pregnant, and I'm not doing that. Okay? Over and over and over again, I set the boundary and she crossed that line. I set the boundary and she crossed that line, to the point where I set a boundary with my entire fucking Burger King that I would not work the same shift as her anymore. And then one week I looked at the schedule and I had 3 shifts with her. I clocked out, I sat in the outside area and I thought to myself, and then I just quit and walked out. And I lived off of my savings for a few months, and I was running out of money, and I wasn't looking for another job because I was agoraphobic and I couldn't really afford to be. But I got really lucky that there were still people that cared about me, and the woman I still call my mom to this day, even though we barely speak, because I'm not good at maintaining healthy relationships. Yay! Let me move in with her, and I got another job, and eventually I needed to move out of there, and I couldn't save up enough for a deposit. on a good place, so I ended up moving into, some guy was renting out rooms in his house, and I lived there, and I'm fairly certain that there was a mirror behind the bathroom mirror. There was a camera, and I shut down, and then the woman I call my mom had moved back to Chicago, and she came for a visit, and I quit my job that day and went with her to Chicago to live in a suburb of Chicago. I lived with her and her grandmother for a while, and then the grandma got sick of me being there because basically all I did if I wasn't working was watch TV. Because I'm not social or outgoing. I mean, when I'm around people, I'm bright, engaging, and smart and funny because, I mean, I can't help it. Except that because my dad kept hiring private investigators my entire fucking childhood, I also learned to suppress anything that made me stand out, anything that made me special or cool or fun, like my ability to act, which I picked up as a defense mechanism when I was with the Comptons, because you have to pull off a very convincing act of everything's fine when everything was very, very not fine. Eventually I couldn't take the weather there anymore. I was working 2 jobs. Just to occupy my time, and I was a part of the Berwyn Police Explorers program because I wanted to be a cop. Eventually I just decided to move back to Arizona, and I found a roommate online. And when I moved in there, everything seemed cool at first. I mean, I did everything. I paid my rent on time. I paid my rent early. But he was kind of creepy as fuck, and I wanted to get out, and I'd reconnected with somebody I knew from high school, and they said that I could move in with them. And then at the last minute, something changed in their life, and that was no longer possible, but I could not stay where I was, and I decided, fuck it, I'll be homeless for a while since I can't afford a deposit on a new place. And I moved into a ravine, and I set up a tent, and there was a couple that lived in the ravine that I befriended, and they had another friend named Hulk, because he had a mustache like Hulk Hogan, who, when I pulled off my beanie to reveal my very short peach fuzz hair, immediately became obsessed with me, ingratiated himself into my life, and I have another video where I describe that entire relationship, and I'm not going to say it again because I just said it yesterday, and fuck you, I'm not going into that again. I almost died. He was gonna kill me. After that, I was living in an apartment, and that the Salvation Army helped me secure, and I was working at Blockbuster, and eventually I snapped, and I wasn't functioning because one night when I was living in that apartment, I think I actually covered that in the other video. I don't want to talk about that. Anyways, I decided to go back to college, and I signed up for classes, and I didn't know if I had secured funding or not, so I went to go check at the local library on the internet if I'd received an email or not, and the day I went to go check to see if I was going to be able to start classes, I received a message from my grandmother on my father's side, encouraging me to pursue a relationship with my dad because it was all lies, and I was desperate and alone. And also, underneath it all, I wanted to get it over with. He'd pursued me my whole fucking life. Fucking let him catch me. I didn't care about myself at that point. I really didn't. I didn't care. I didn't care anymore. So I ended up moving in with him, and the woman he was pseudo married to, because my mom never divorced my dad and my little stepsister, and I let myself be the target to make sure that that little girl was safe. And during that period of time, his pseudo wife noticed the way he looked at me and shit, and decided she was going to kick me out. And he went with me, and we lived in my uncle's workshop place for a while. And during that time, I decided to just say yes. Because I knew in that specific scenario, it was gonna happen whether I said yes or not, and I said, fuck it. This time it's gonna be my choice. I'm gonna say yes, and I'm going to do it enthusiastically. And I'm disgusted with myself for having done this. But there's this weird part of me that still loves my dad, because I was born to be a daddy's girl. Even though I'm not a girl. Oh, God. So feel free to judge me. I judge me. But eventually his pseudo-wife realized she couldn't sustain her lifestyle without his income. So he moved back in with her, and I wasn't going to continue saying yes in that environment. And rather than accept my no, he would try to just get on me and hump me and try to get me to spread my legs. And it got to the point where I couldn't sleep. So I tried pinning myself to the bathroom door with my legs pushed firmly against the fucking, like, there was the bathroom door and there was the counter, the sink thing, and I was pushing myself like that to try to keep the door shut so that I could get some sleep with some peace. And he would force his way into the bathroom anyway, even if I locked it. Crying and pleading with him to stop as he pleasured himself in front of me. And then they were going to move out of the apartment into her mom's house. And I used the excuse that her mom's house had been filthy and covered with shit all the time, because her mom never cleaned up after her dogs, to say that I was not moving there. Because I knew that if I moved into that house, yes or no wasn't going to matter, because there was going to be my own room, and he would just... I was not going to be safe. I just had decided I was going to move to Tucson and live in a women's shelter so that I could be near the one person in the world at that point who I knew what to expect from, and that I considered my very best friend. Before I got the chance to pursue that, my mom's sister guilt tripped me by displaying my very young cousins to me, asking why I didn't love them as much as I loved my dad. And forced a situation to her liking in which I moved in with my mom. I wasn't working during any of this time because I could not hold down a job to save my life. I was having panic attacks and I was untreated for my depression and all of that jazz. I was having massive fucking panic attacks, and going out into the world was getting more and more terrifying every time I did it. And then my sister was medically discharged from the U.S. Air Force and could not live on her own, and also was not going to stay where she had been living because snow was bad with her medical condition, because she feels temperatures differently, and also slippery things bad because of stuff. Anyways, so when she moved back here, we got an apartment together that she paid for, and I felt very guilty about that. And I actually, at our first apartment, did pseudo have a job. I would spin a sign to encourage people to come rent from the apartment complex, and I got an hourly wage from that was just deducted from our monthly rent, and there were a few months when I paid off the whole rent, and I was very proud of myself for that. And my sister helped me get on EBT and on I started trying to get on Social Security disability benefits, and that took years. We'd actually, when I started the process, we were at the first apartment, then we moved to the second apartment, and then my sister got a huge back pay from the Air Force, and I convinced her that we should buy a house because a mortgage would be cheaper, and in the end you actually own your property and you can do whatever the fuck you want with it. And we looked for months and we got our first house. And I hated it. I hated that fucking house. Part of the reason why I wanted to get out of apartments was to get away from all the mariachi music. And I know that that sounds racist or whatever, but it was loud and it was constant. And it bled through the walls. I mean, I understand that you enjoy your music in your own home, but I don't want to hear it 24/7. And we still got a lot of that at the house that we did live in. And then about 4 years ago, I discovered that the home that we owned, that we'd gotten because for really cheap, because it was a foreclosure, was worth double what we originally owed on the mortgage. So we decided to find a wonderful home. And we looked for months and months, and we did research, and all of the houses that we looked at, we eventually decided that we wanted somewhere with land. It was something that I wanted, and my sister also agreed. And when we found this, where we currently ended up, we were very excited. And I still love living here. We've had our issues since moving in. We've had 2 animals that we've had to put down. Our grandmother died. And one of our dogs, before she got put down, had diabetes, didn't have diabetes, constantly needed checkups. Another dog had cancer, had to have part of her jaw removed, got cancer again, had to have surgery on her leg, to the point that it's been so financially stressful because we also had to replace our well, and we've had some issues with the piping in the house, that if there's another cancer scare with that dog, we're going to say goodbye. And our beloved cat Sweets, who she had brought back with her from where she'd been living before, at 13 years old. uh, we were told that he had leukemia, that it was 99% a possibility, and we didn't even want to pay for the test to confirm it. We decided to go ahead and let him go because he had lived a full and happy life, and we value quality over quantity in this family. And that all happened within a short 4-year time span. I thought I was dealing with all of my trauma. Like, I'm very aware of everything that I go through, and I try to process it as I go. But a couple months back, I just couldn't get out of bed anymore, because I think the only reason why I kept going after all of those things kept happening is because there was still something else going on. And I cannot shut down if I am needed. And there wasn't a pressing issue that I was needed for. So I stopped getting out of bed. And then I realized that part of what I was going to need in order to be mentally healthy was some form of social interaction. So I joined TikTok. And it's awesome. I've seen a lot of wonderful, amazing people on it. And I hope none of them click the link to my YouTube, because I'm going to put this up there. And if you've been watching this nearly hour-long rant about my life, I apologize. I just needed to put this out there for me. And I know that I jumped around in my story, and I know that there's a lot of stuff I didn't say. But if you want a cursory glance at my life, I haven't worked in over a decade, and it kills me. I mean, I did take a peer support specialist class, and that went to shit because I wasn't living with my sister at the time. I did move out at one point because our cousin was living with us, and the dynamic of the house had changed so drastically because she fed off of his energy instead of mine, and I still didn't have an income. So the whole thing just got very twisted, and I ended up actually going inpatient twice within a short period of time because I finally understood that I could just go there to get my medications adjusted, and I wanted to take care of myself for once. I ended up in a relationship while I was not living with my sister that was with a couple, and my boundaries weren't respected. The boundaries of that relationship weren't respected, and I didn't want to leave it, and I stayed a lot longer than I should because they had a daughter, and I loved her, and she was my daughter while I was a part of that relationship, and I miss her. But I know that I gave her as much as I could while I was there, because I learned later that when she did finally start school, they said that she was bright, smart, and engaging, and that she was really advanced with mathematics, and that she had a good understanding of all of these things because I set up those foundations for her. And I'm really proud of myself for that. Okay, I think I've talked long enough. Bye.